Hello, good afternoon, wherever you are on the World Wide Web. Jeremy Geelan here, Group Publisher of SYS-CON Media for SYS-CON TV with the second annual Application Server Shootout, which is why we're joined by Enterprise Editor of Java Developers Journal, Yakov Fain. Yakov, welcome.
Hello.
And even more importantly, it's why we're joined by representatives of Oracle, IBM, BEA, SUN, Microsoft, and JBoss. Let battle begin. I would like our guests, please, to introduce themselves here at the second annual Application Server Shootout. Starting with Mike from Oracle.
Hello, my name is Mike Lehman. I'm the Director of Product Management for Oracle Application Server. It's a key component of Oracle Fusion middleware. I run the product management team that builds the core J2EE and web services engine in that environment. Today I'm going to be talking with my colleagues here about how it compares to their environment in the areas of service-oriented architecture, how it plugs into your environment, how it works with open source, and how we can help enable large-scale operational deployments with middleware technology.
Hi, I'm Mark Hyde from IBM. I manage a team of product managers who focus on WebSphere's runtime products. Those include WebSphere Extended Deployment, which virtualizes customers' infrastructures, WebSphere Application Server Network Deployment, and WebSphere Application Server Express. For both of those products, we have the same programming model across the line and support over 30 platforms, so customers can write once, run everywhere. Those products also are the underpinnings of IBM's service-oriented architecture, which means that if you develop skill and applications on the application server, they move right into your service-oriented architecture. I'm also very excited to bring news today of a new product which we shipped last Tuesday based on open source from the Apache Foundation's Geronimo project. That product is called WebSphere Application Server Community Edition, no upfront costs, and it's focused on customers who wish to have, well, first of all, who have Java skill in-house and who wish to have quick time to market with a product that is based on a lightweight app server that's highly flexible.
Hi, I'm Gary McBride from BEA Systems. I'm the Senior Product Manager for WebLogic Server 9 with its enterprise-grade kernel and zero downtime features along with advanced administrative capabilities and multi-programmer model interface. It forms the basis of the WebLogic Platform 9. BEA is one of the leading middleware companies and the only independent application server company out there. WebLogic forms the service basis of your service-oriented architecture. And now with the new AquaLogic product line, which was announced here in Times Square just a few months ago, our BEA is now able to provide enterprise-wide SOA governance for your enterprise.
Hi, I'm Rich Sharples, Group Product Manager with Sun Microsystems. I'm Group Product Manager for Application Platform Products. And I'm here to represent what is possibly the most comprehensive, open standards-based, integrated, and integratable software platforms in the industry.
Hi, I'm Dino Chiesa with Microsoft. I'm Product Manager for the Application Platform team at Microsoft. And in fact, I am the Application Server Marketing team at Microsoft. Unlike the rest, I believe, of the participants on the panel, Microsoft does not offer a product formally called an application server. However, we do have Windows Server, which has all of the features of an application server and is very widely used by customers all over the world in all sorts of different industries and geographies as an application server with great success. So I'm glad to be here to talk a little bit more about how the Microsoft application server and application platform can fulfill the needs of enterprises around the world.
Hello, I'm Sean Conley, Vice President of Product Management at JBoss. My focus at JBoss is on the continued build-out of our JBoss Enterprise Middleware Suite of products as the only open-source platform for SOA, and doing so in a way that follows our professional open-source business model, so plug-and-play of its components such as JBoss Application Server, Hibernate, Apache Tomcat, JBoss Cache, Portal, JBoss JBPM, and the variety of products that are in our suite. So continued build-out in a plug-and-play, interoperable fashion, providing the best-of-breed platform technologies to choose from. And the other part of my job is also focused on working with a variety of other SOA vendors out there and ensuring interoperability across the platform so our customers get the maximum value out of their existing investments. And then finally, just sort of as a final piece of it, since JBoss and the GEMS are free and open source software products, as product manager, zero cost product line, I do also help define out our JBoss subscription, which is there to really help our customers, community partners, et cetera, get the maximum value out of our JBoss Enterprise Middleware Suite products.
Well, thank you, Sean. So there we have it. There's the lineup for the shootout today, and we'll get a little bit technical just in a moment after a short break in just a second.
Our first application server shootout happened back in February, I remember. It was a great success, and I would like to ask you guys these questions. What has changed since then? What technical enhancement did you announce during these 9 months? And also, please state your pricing point and what services do you offer. I'm sure Sean will be happy to answer again the pricing point. Please.
Focus over, really since our inception, but over the last 6 months, has really been on simplifying the platform. So Java EE5 technologies such as EJB3, Java server faces, some of the web services standards that appear there, really simplify the development model. As we see it, there's also more that can be done there. So other technologies that we've added on top of our application server includes such things as JBoss Theme, which is really a framework that ties together the Java server faces web tier with the EJB3 middle tier and persistence tier, and really providing a very seamless, very simplified, very streamlined development model for the developers who enjoy and love our platform. Speaking of sort of the price points and the services that we have to offer around that, since at JBoss our products are free and open source, we don't have a dual license model or what have you. What you see out there in the community, you download, you use it, etc. We're really in the business to help our customers, our community, and our partners get the most out of that system. And get the most out of the various products that are using out of our stack. So we have primarily our business is centered around providing the JBoss subscription, and basically what that is it provides value-added services, the typical 24/7 support, etc., as well as tools and assistance to enable the production users to roll it out, manage their cluster, manage patches, etc., on this open source software that they're using. So our challenge as a business and really our focus as a business is on continuing that high quality technology that is GEMS, the JBoss Enterprise Middleware Suite, but also to provide the highest quality and service around our subscription. Because bottom line, we're only in business, every year is an election year as we see it. So if we're not supplying high value and customer satisfaction, then our customer base will take their business elsewhere.
Well, at Microsoft, I'd say the biggest things that we've introduced in the past 6 months have included probably centered around the .NET Framework version 2.0, which just was released publicly earlier this month. The .NET Framework version 2.0 is an update of the 1.1 framework that's been out for about 3.5 years. Real easy update to make. Any of your code that you have running now will just run on the new framework. However, the new framework does offer some nice advantages for productivity and some performance advantages. But along with that .NET Framework 2.0, which will run on any existing Windows Server as well as future versions of Windows Server, we've also introduced companion tools, the Visual Studio 2005 suite of tools that you can use to build server-based applications that are based on the .NET Framework 2.0. As well, we introduced SQL Server 2005. So all of that we consider to be not necessarily part of the application server, but part of the broader application platform. That would be the tools, the framework, the programming framework, and the database. Now, in addition, we'll be releasing what we call Windows Server 2003 R2 in December. So in a couple of weeks now, R2 of Windows Server 2003 will again include enhancements in the areas of security and performance, and will just work with what you've already got. So some nice capabilities there for the application platform. One of the things we wanted to talk about was the price point for an application server based on Microsoft technology. For a nicely equipped application server, the software license will cost you about $1,000. That's a street price. Microsoft doesn't deal direct generally. You're going to be going through a reseller, but about $1,000. If you'd like to get an internet connector, that's for internally facing, employee facing systems. If you want to face that out to the internet, it's about $3,000 extra, street price. That would include the external connector, it's called. So $4,000 total will get you a fully powered application server that runs on, let's say, a 4-way HP DL585 with 8 gig of RAM. Powerful server. You can run thousands of transactions per minute on this thing, and it's about $4,000 for the software license. That includes software assurance, which is a services offering, a subscription-based offering that gives you the 24/7 helpline support, email support. You can even get on-site support with that as well. So we think what we're offering here is a pretty compelling price point, lots of good capability, excellent performance, in a nice, easy-to-use package.
So, okay, let me talk about price first. So a couple of years ago, we introduced a fairly innovative subscription-based pricing model. So the entire software stack from Sun, the Java Enterprise System, that's basically $150 per year per employee. You can use as much of that software for as many things as you want, as many machines as you want. There's no cap on scale. The price includes the software. It includes support. It also includes training and consulting credits. We've also introduced in the last 6 months suites, which are kind of subdivisions of the Java Enterprise System. They're more solutions focused and a lower price point. They're $50 per employee per year. Again, the same subscription-based model, support, training credits, and consulting included. No cap on scale. We don't charge you more the more you use it. In addition, we also have per socket-based pricing. That's important. Per socket, not per CPU, not per thread. Per socket. Simple, easy to measure. So specifically for the application server, we have 3 editions. The Platform Edition, which is a base J3 certified application server. That's $0 per socket. You can buy additional support if you want. It's free for developer, for production, for OEM, whatever you want to do with it. It's $0. We then have the Standard Edition, which is built on the same core software as the Platform Edition, which is $2,000 per socket. That's really aimed at horizontally scaled deployments. And finally, we have the Enterprise Edition, which is for your real mission-critical, highly available deployments, and that's $10,000 per socket.
At BEA, it's been a very exciting 6 months. We went GA with our WebLogic Server 9 in July. Let me tell you a few things that WebLogic Server 9 offers. There are an integrated WebLogic diagnostic framework, which allows all the different containers to be able to report on their health. There's a centralized sort of central nervous system work manager, which allows the server to self-configure itself so that it prevents itself from getting locked up. There are high availability solutions, including side-by-side deployment of your application servers. There are rolling server upgrades so that now it's possible to cycle a version of your WebLogic server without bringing the cluster down. These high availability solutions, included with the hardening of our enterprise-grade kernel, which include robust transaction, high-speed messaging, extremely fast file I/O. We've improved file I/O performance an order of magnitude over the previous version. And all of these features fit together to provide the core for the WebLogic platform. So the roadmap for our platform is going to be Portal and WebLogic Workshop, which is the configuration and an IDE part of that, are going to be following in Q1 of next year. and WebLogic Integration 9 will be following 2 quarters after that for a complete WebLogic Platform 9. Let's start to talk about pricing points at this point. We have a product called WebLogic Express, which is just the web container, which is priced at about $500. We have various versions of WebLogic Server itself. We have a fully integrated platform with portal and integration, which sell at different prices. But I'd like to talk about specifically an announcement we made a couple weeks ago, which is a new WebLogic Mid-Market Edition, which is 2 CPUs, $45.95, including the standard support costs. And we've done some numbers, and compared to free open source software, for example, JBoss, we ran the numbers on JBoss, over 5 years, our product price point of 2 CPUs, which is suitable for small, medium business, plus the support, is actually 40% cheaper than JBoss over time. So when you consider open source software, think that open source software is free like a puppy is free. Don't think about the initial licensing cost. Be thinking about the entire total cost of ownership over time. So WebLogic, with its J2EE compliance, in addition, with all kinds of enterprise-grade features, we think makes a much more compelling product.
At IBM, in the last 6 months, we've been busy. I'd like to focus or highlight the 2 extremes of the product line. WebSphere Extended Deployment has had a focus in the last 6 months with the release of 6.0 last summer on increasing the degree of virtualization that's possible in a number of ways. Extended deployment is 15K, and it sits on top of WebSphere Application Server Network Deployment, which is also 15K. So we're talking about 30K per CPU here. Bear in mind that as you use extended deployment on top of ND, it's ready to go for the rest of the SOA stack from IBM. So you can apply what I'm about to describe up the stack and benefit in terms of qualities of service provided in the service-oriented architecture. It does virtualization in a number of very significant and interesting ways. One is it takes siloed applications, which have been, for the most part, invested in to accommodate peak loads, and brings them together in a generalized cache, which enables a number of benefits. We drive a rules-based workflow engine into the centralized resource area there, and make sure that the prioritized applications get served first, and that means that the peak loads, which would have been in an individual silo previously, now are handled across the set of servers. This means that costs can be reduced significantly. It also means that high-priority applications can get the priority they need during peak load times. Object grid is another thing to think about here. You'll hear a lot more about that soon from us. In addition, we have the ability with this product to manage not just WebSphere nodes. Everything I've been describing, you might have thought is just for WebSphere application servers, but in fact, we can take any competitor application server and have it appear in the clustering that in the virtualization schemes that I'm talking about. The cost of including another app server beyond WebSphere in that would be $5K, and that's a piece of software that would then be loaded onto one of those app servers and allows it to participate. At the low end of the line, then, I mentioned a minute ago that we have WebSphere Application Server Community Edition. With that comes 3 levels of support. So as we base it on the Geronimo project and add a few features that constitute incremental value from IBM, we provide 3 levels of support. So they range in terms of overall function from a fairly low-end offering right up to the full 9-yard set of features in the support that you would get with one of our commercial products.
At Oracle, it's been a very busy product 6 months. We've done a number of things both in the core server as well as at the SOA level. So at the core server, what we've done is we focus very heavily on a number of new innovative technologies. EJB 3.0, where we're at the first commercial vendor implementing EJB 3.0, Java Server Faces, where we're again leading this effort in implementing Java Server Faces. We've always focused in that app server around high availability, grid deployments, large-scale deployments, and we released our Oracle Application Server 10GR2, which was the second release of that product line. In the SOA area, where we focused on was extending out the areas of SOA that we believe are critically important for you to deploy SOA architectures. BIFL for building business processes, business rules engine for building rules-based applications, web services management for managing policies and policy enforcement in your SOA environments. So we spent a lot of effort around hardening that core J2E server, adding innovative areas in the space of EJB 3.0 where we lead the spec, where we're also building design times in the Eclipse community, and then we spent a lot of time in the SOA space. In terms of price points, Oracle has an interesting model here. We have both starting at free, very much like our open source competitors, where you can download our technology, Oracle JDeveloper, run our design time environment. It's free. You can build your applications. Interestingly, it deploys those applications across our competitor environments. You'll see it deploys to JBoss, it deploys to WebSphere, it deploys to Oracle Application Server. But then we go up, and we go up into commercial deployments where we have the core Oracle Application Server going for $5K per CPU, or if you prefer to buy it on a per user basis at about $100 per user. One of the key features of the Oracle Application Server is this message of hot pluggable. So I can take an application built on one of these other application servers and run it on the Oracle Application Server. I can take key features inside of the Oracle Application Server and run it on third-party application servers. This is something we see extensively in our customer base where, for example, here on Wall Street, where TIBCO Rendezvous is a common messaging bus. We don't want to go in there and rip and replace out infrastructures. Oracle Fusion Middleware basically plugs in and lets you mix and match your environment so we can work an SOA solution into your environment.
An incredible array of pricing points and a spectrum of pricing. Let's have Yakov with a follow-up question just after this very brief message.
Even though I worked as a Java enterprise editor at JDJ, during the business hours, I work as a J2E architect and developer. And what is important to me, how reusable are the applicational components developed on different application servers. J2E started on a great concept of being reusable. If I want, I can take this jar or EAR file and move it to a different and deploy it to a different application server. But obviously you guys have to compete, so each of you start introducing proprietary features to your application server. So we start a new project, we are way in the project development cycle, and all of a sudden we figure out that we don't like this application server for whatever reason. Did you introduce any proprietary feature on top of regular J2E specification? And if yes, how easy it is to get out of that if we decided to do so? I understand that this may be not a fair question for Microsoft representative, so I'll start with Dino. If you want, go ahead and ask. If not, you're excused.
I appreciate that. I don't think it's an unfair question. I think it's an interesting question because the premise, which you introduced, is that portability is important. To me, to the customers that I speak with, portability in and of itself is not what they're after. What they're after is risk reduction or risk mitigation. Portability is a means to that end, is a way to get a lower risk proposition, to lower the risk associated with committing to a platform. In the old days, there were lots of Unix vendors, and you needed portability to ensure or protect yourself against the disappearance of an Apollo or a Wang or an SGI. And so it was important. In these days, you have to consider how important is portability. If you bet on a reliable, stable vendor, somebody who you've seen, you've got a good relationship with, you believe is in for the long haul, you can project that they're going to be there, that their technology will be stable and supported for years. They've got, for example, formal policies that state they've got a 5-year mainstream support policy, such as Microsoft does, plus 5 years extended support. If you have that sort of guarantee, that mitigates the risk associated with committing to a technology platform. And so, in my understanding, in talking with customers, portability, the importance of portability is somewhat lessened in that area. So it's not about portability per se, it's about risk mitigation, and that to me is where Microsoft does a great job, being as stable, as well known as we are. Another thing you mentioned, Yakov, was around reusable components, and that's certainly of value, but portability isn't necessary for that, right? What you need is a component architecture that allows construction of components and then pluggability of these components, and that for Microsoft is bread and butter. That is what we have strived to do for all of the years that we've been a platform company. I'll give you some examples in the application server area today, particularly around components, visual components for web applications. ASP.NET, which is the web application framework in Windows Server, allows you to create these controls, reusable, customizable controls that can be plugged into any particular web app and bound to a data source, whether that's a web service, a database, or some data bus such as TIBCO Rendezvous, which was mentioned a little bit earlier. That's a great example. In the box, inside Windows Server with ASP.NET, you've got over 50 different reusable web controls right out of the box, but there's an SDK where you can build your own. Very simple. All part of the tools, really rapid. You can then go reuse them. You can go get third-party tools, third-party components, and plug them in. In addition, we partner with repository companies that provide the ability to catalog the components that you can reuse, not just web components, but other artifacts, reusable artifact components into this repository. You can go query that, associate metadata to it, and you can take advantage of that reusability of components. So, while I think the question about portability is an interesting one, I think it's primarily interesting because we really should be examining the premise around portability and what do you really get out of it. And again, I think Microsoft's going to offer some nice advantages in risk mitigation.
Mike, what about your view on that then?
Great. I think Dino hit the nail on the head, and risk mitigation is really what this is all about. And Oracle looks at it in two levels. First is we are clearly committed to J2EE as a fundamental standard platform for building applications and building our infrastructure. And so what we look to is when something doesn't exist within J2EE, we work within the J2EE community to extend J2EE. And for example, our co-leadership in the EJB 3.0 specification is a great example of that. Our work on Java Enterprise 5.0 is another great example. We believe in building out and extending the J2EE standard as we go along and participating heavily in the community to make that a success. When there are things that aren't inside the J2EE world that need to be created, and I'll give a great example that we've invested a lot of time and energy into, which is BPL, Business Process Execution Language, which is a process management engine. The way we do it is we work within the standards communities that are defining those standards. OASIS is defining BPL, and then we build our implementation in J2EE so that we actually are deploying on that J2EE container. And when BPL becomes part of the J2EE community, part of that set of standards, we already have an implementation built in J2EE. One of the concerns raised by Dino is, portability. Well, this is where our hot pluggable message comes in. Because we're committed to Java as our implementation language, because we're working within the standards community, even when we build out that BPL engine, our web services management solution, all in Java, they in fact, because they're in Java, they are portable. And we make an effort to certify not only on the Oracle application server, but on these third-party containers as well, because they are built fundamentally in Java. Finally, the point I wanted to mention is also about large-scale deployments. One of the areas that is not defined in Java is how do I do large-scale grid-like deployments, not just tens of servers, hundreds of servers, thousands of servers. What we do is we take standard J2EE applications and we enable you to manage them as a unit, provision them across an environment, secure them across an environment. These are areas that we take existing J2EE applications and we add our value on top of it. So, work within the standards community, build our extensions to those standards in Java, and then take advantage of that core J2EE foundation to have large-scale deployments.
I would agree that this is definitely about risk mitigation. I think it's primarily risk around vendor lock-in. IBM's been a leader in standards adoption and setting for a very long time, and we continue to build everything we're building based on open standards where they exist. In cases where the community of folks who are driving standards haven't yet coalesced around a given standard, be it J2 based or a variety of others, we really do want to move forward. Our customers are asking for functionality that will help them be more competitive, and so we can't be hogtied by the standard setting process in cases where it's moving more slowly than our customers would like. Therefore, IBM definitely moves ahead and tries to actually take what we're doing beyond standards and move them into the standards process while working with our partners. A good example of a standard that we believe needs to be established is one around clustering and general grid-like capability. So, for example, with WebSphere Extended Deployment that I mentioned earlier, we're doing a number of very significant things that early and aggressive adopters in, say, financial services have found extremely useful, yet they don't exist as a standard today. If you move in that direction, much of it is done fairly seamlessly. You don't even need to change your application. In other cases, the changes are needed, but they're not too in-depth, and for the competitive advantage that the customer accrues by moving in this direction, they're willing to risk having to reverse if need be, if the standards process moves in a different direction. So we found that really it's customers asking us for functionality that goes beyond the current standards that makes us want to go ahead and move the needle. And then, as I said, nobody's working harder than we are to establish standards in these areas so the community can coalesce around them.
BEA has a long, proud history of innovation, and that's really what attracted me to the company about 6 years ago. Where there are no standards available, BEA will innovate. And when the standard does exist, BEA will adopt. BEA also sits on most of the standards committees, so that we have actually contributed a lot to the Java community process. We also sit on major SOA committees like W3C and OASIS, and we contribute greatly to the open standards community. With WebLogic Server 9, we have standards that are the latest standards. For example, we've just integrated EJB3 through a recent acquisition. We have EJB3 that does an actual container and implementation that works with WebLogic Server 9 and 8 and 7. And we're actually moving forward and sitting on most of the Java EE5 committees, and we're going to be adopting as soon as possible.
Sean. So at JBoss, our mantra is open source, open standards. That's one of the guiding principles. The fact that we are on the Java Community Process Executive Committee, and really participating in EJB3 and really driving the simplicity of enterprise Java is a key piece of our vision. One of the things, really, the question was really about sort of interoperability and risk mitigation and things like that. So, the other facet of our, fact of life, if you will, is JBoss is used within heterogeneous environments in many of our large customers, our large enterprise customers. So the fact is we do have to remain, portable, if you will, so they can move their technologies, their applications, et cetera, which are running on that Java double-E platform, and avoid the vendor lock-in, et cetera. I think the benefit in our business model is being open source and having that open source development model. It really keeps each of the smaller groups that are funneling up into building that application server, innovating at a high rate, having a lot of interactions through the developer community in that open source space. So that's sort of another gating factor to ensure that we do this in a pluggable fashion. How does that manifest itself? I'll use some of the other products in the JBoss Enterprise Middleware Suite as examples. So Hibernate, very, very popular product technology, a key piece of our application server platform and our EJB3 implementation. But Hibernate is also used very extensively in customers of ours who are WebSphere shops. We're fine with that. We love that fact. We embrace that fact. Our JBoss JBPM, which is an embeddable workflow and BPM engine, same thing. It can be used across AppServer platforms. Our job at JBoss is to ensure that it integrates up within our suite, but the simplicity of the platform, the pluggability of the platform, building from the ground up on a microkernel architecture where you plug in services, you can replace our services, use existing services, etc., is a fundamental piece of our architectural vision. You want to use our new JBoss Rules product based off of the Rules open source project, knock yourself out. You don't have to use it with AppServer. We encourage you to do so. But if you're using one of the other application server platforms, we'll be happy to assist you in using that piece of technology. Why? Because developers love it. It gets the job done efficiently and in a simple manner. And it really isn't all about consuming a large stack that's complex to price and purchase. It's about acquiring the technology in a simple manner, deploying it in a simple manner across your solutions, and having a much more streamlined relationship with the vendor behind it, being JBoss.
Okay, thanks, Sean. But it wouldn't be a question from Yakov about J2E without Sun's take on it. So, Rich, finish up this round then. Sun.
So two fundamental principles of Sun software stack, the Java Enterprise Systems, are integrated and integratable. Integrated in that the stuff all works together. We do the integration, so customers don't have to. There's no version mismatches. There's no platform synchronization problems. We're constantly driving to really push that unification. Unification of the entire user experience is one of the longer-term goals. Integratable, that means our stuff will happily coexist with other people's stuff. Quite often when you're trying to replace enterprise middleware, you can't just rip and replace. It has to be a phased, planned integration. So the way we can do that kind of cohabitation is through our support of open standards. J2E is obviously one of them, Java EE, I should say. But Sun are active in both pushing the standards, JCP, W3C, Oasis, WSI, but also in implementing those standards. We specifically for Java EE, we have tools to replace enterprise middleware. You can't just rip and replace. It has to be a phased, planned integration. So the way we can do that kind of cohabitation is through our support of open standards. J2E is obviously one of them, Java EE, I should say. But Sun are active in both pushing the standards, JCP, W3C, Oasis, WSI, but also in implementing those standards. We specifically for Java EE, we have tools to really validate whether an application is standard or not. So that's something you can use whether you're a Sun customer or not. It's a free product called the Application Verification Kit. Run your application through it. It'll tell you how portable your application is. Clearly there are areas that aren't covered by the Java EE standard. Clustering, high availability, predominantly runtime characteristics, behavior, aren't covered by the Java EE spec. So just like with all the other vendors, we still ensure that when you cluster, when you turn on high availability, the application is still standard. It's Java EE. There are no special APIs. There are no tricks you have to pull. The application still has to run as a Java EE application, and that's key to Java EE. One other important thing is for the audience to think about is, okay, the software ecosystem is bigger than Java EE. Sun are constantly pushing new standards. The Java Business Integration Standard, for example, which was recently finalized, and there's a reference implementation available. There are standards in Portal. So as we move to this kind of broader SOA environment, I'd like people to think about how they would like to see Java EE go. Do they want to see it grow up the stack, stay the same size, and just concentrate on the base layer? There's potential there to do for some of these up stack components just what we did for Java EE. So have a think about that.
Okay, Rich, thanks. Now I'm going to take the part of the viewer, I think, because what I'm hearing from all you guys is this embarrassment of riches. It's incredible. The pricing points are all over the shop now. The range of things that we can have from you is incredible. But I want you to single in, if you would, one by one, on just the one most compelling feature that is going to mean that somebody watching this segment is going to go and try Sun or try IBM. If I may, I'd like to start with you, Gary. Why try BEA?
BEA is the only independent middleware vendor here in that we're not trying to sell a database, we're not trying to sell you global services, we're not trying to sell you any AI system. Middleware is our bread and butter. WebLogic Server is our cornerstone product, and we live and die by the way in which we're able to integrate with other systems.
Okay, no, that's fine. That's the pitch we're after. Mike, same deal. Oracle. The one thing, Mike.
What Oracle brings to the table is what we call a complete service-oriented architecture platform, Oracle Fusion Middleware. And the key thing that's different about it, beyond the breadth of it, of process management, web services management, J2E as a foundation, the key thing that's different about it is that it has this hot pluggable infrastructure, that you can replace that infrastructure, plug it into your environment without ripping it and replacing it, make it work in your environment. We're solving a business problem. We're not trying to sell you a middleware that replaces your infrastructure. We're solving the business problem that you're trying to build out in your organization.
Okay, fair enough, Mike. But is he right, Sean? Is that what JBoss is saying?
So at JBoss, our focus is on simplification, simplification of the business model, simplification of acquiring technology, simplifying the relationship between vendor and enterprise customer, providing a whole pluggable suite of products where you're able to pick and choose which pieces, technologies, and products, etc., are designed to really satisfy your particular needs. And that's really driven from our grassroots upbringing. Developers really have played a large role in building up a large community, and we are focused on solving real problems and simplifying developers' lives, our customers' lives, partners, etc. Bottom line.
He's beginning to sound like you, Dino. Speak to the Microsoft message on this.
Well, for me, for our customers, it's all about productivity. It's about getting things done, getting what they need to get done faster. That's what we're trying to deliver. We could talk about features, we can talk about transaction management or message queuing or load balancing. We can talk about price points as far as the software license, where Microsoft's going to be 1/10 the cost of some of the other commercial enterprise servers here. That's not what matters to customers. What matters to customers is they want to get their things done and they want to get them done more quickly, and that's what we're trying to offer. We'll give you the interop, we'll give you the transactions, you can connect to your mainframe, you can use your Oracle database as a back-end store, but we enable you to do it more quickly so you can get back to business.
He didn't mention Sun, Rich, so you're going to have to do that for us.
Okay, across the board we're trying to push down costs. Hardware, middleware, the development process, the runtime side of it, we're trying to push down costs. An example of that is our recent spec J submissions, where we deployed with a free application server, a free database, and we have the price performance record. Another example is our innovation around web services. Fast Infosec is a binary compression for SOAP, essentially, where we still think that will give us the edge over BEA IBM on price performance.
Mark Hyde, he's mentioning records. I'm not sure that's safe. IBM.
Well, we hear our customers telling us one thing very clearly. To compete in the future, they need to be as flexible and agile as possible. That's a business consideration which is enabled by IT infrastructure. And so we believe that the future of IT, to accommodate that business need, is about a service-oriented architecture. So why buy IBM? Why buy IBM's AppServer? Because that's the first step in the move to building out a full service-oriented architecture, which then leads to better business competitiveness.
Okay, then I want to just throw to Yakov. I know the elephant in the room, I suppose, is going to be open source. Yakov, let's ask these guys which side of the fence people should be sitting.
Basically, speaking of open source, I know that it's free. I know the other concern that I have, will this company be around in 10 years from now? I know that some people are charging you upfront with the money for products. Some people are saying our product is free, but they will charge you later on services. So what should a regular guy like me do? Should I go with open source, or do you think I should stick to a commercial product?
Maybe we start with Sean on that.
So being JBoss professional open source, you sort of know where my answer is going to go. But basically, I think it's really about getting the value out of your decision. And really, one of the things you had brought up is, I think when you look at open source, you want to make sure that there's a vibrant community around it, that technology is going to be around for a very long time, that it solves real business needs, etc. So the JBoss application server, Hibernate, all of these are very proven in the open source community. And really at JBoss, we look at it as we've fundamentally have changed the business model that you bring software. So whether we've choosing not to charge basically a $0 license cost for that software, and really enable you to make the choice. And then when you need our assistance to help you roll it out, to help you manage it, etc., that's what JBoss Inc. is in business about, providing the subscription services, training, and expert consulting on that. It's a much better vendor relationship. We're not trying to cram a software license down your throat, getting you to buy our stuff before you've had the chance to evaluate it. It's transparent. It's really publicly available. You make the choice. We are convinced you will love it, enjoy it, and come to us for the services around that software. Bottom line, that's a professional open source business.
You think any of that was aimed at you, Mike? Is that aimed at Oracle when he's saying ramming down throats? What's up with that?
I think when you look at open source, what you want to look at first is, does it solve the business problem? Does it actually enable you to solve what you're trying to do? If it does, then you look at risk mitigation, just like you would when you're choosing a commercial vendor. Is it widely adopted? Is there a community around it? Is it based on standards? Can I actually deploy it to multiple different servers? So if it meets those criteria, absolutely, open source is the way to go. In fact, what you see within the Oracle application server is we certified very popular open source products on our environment. Things like Spring, things like Hibernate, things like Access, things like Struts. These platforms, these frameworks are popular, they're proven, they run on our application server. So that's the view you have to take, is look at the open source community, the package you're looking at, see whether it meets the criteria, and then see whether or not it deploys on your application server. And that's what Oracle believes in. We're certifying open source on our platform because we believe people get business value out of it.
Business value out of open source?
Well, I think it's a great question, but for me, open source versus commercial source, closed source, community license, it's a non-issue. The question people are asking is, does this thing solve my business problem? Is it the right balance for me? Is it the right cost? Is it the right, and that's a license cost plus all fully burdened life cycle cost. Does it deliver the right capabilities? What's the risk profile like? Those are the things that people ask, not can I look at the source code? That for people is not a primary factor. In some cases, some enterprises want to have the source code, and that's certainly possible. Microsoft can regularly does that with governments, with large enterprises, and we might be able to do it for your enterprise if that's important to you to have an archive of source code. But that, to me, is not a primary issue. It's, does it solve my business problem? And we're trying to get to that point where we can better solve people's business problems.
Gary, lots of talk, Beehive. BA, you've taken quite a new position on this.
Well, we have a blended strategy. We're embracing open source frameworks like Spring and Beehive, and also open source APIs like XML beans for XML binding. And we feel that it's really about what works for you. Does this technology really get you to where you need to go? It's about solving problems. And we feel that with our blended strategy, with our adoption of these open source frameworks, we're able to provide you exactly as much give and take as you need to affect the solution.
Okay. Mark, IBM, we can't talk open source and not have your input.
We've just introduced the community edition of the AppServer, as I mentioned earlier. That's a real focus area for us down the road. I think this question in general is a bit perhaps naive because there's so much crosstalk now or cross-pollination between open source software communities and commercial software vendors. An example within WebSphere would be that we have at least 10 different community projects in the WebSphere code base, and in turn we're donating very proactively into Geronimo today. So in fact, if you're a customer, does it really matter where the source code comes from? Does it matter that you can actually look at the source code? Very few customers actually do. They actually end up, it seems, feeling like that's a nice insurance policy if they ever need it. So where we would focus is on the business model. If you're a customer who wants to get a lightweight application server with no upfront costs and get moving quickly on your project, and you have Java skill, then you're going to probably want Community Edition. If you're somebody who wants to have the hardened code that's the WebSphere code base in progress for 10 years, market share leading choice, then that's a great option too. So I would echo what's been said earlier in terms of it really requires that you do some due diligence to figure out what the solution you need is, but I wouldn't break it out into open source versus commercial. That's not the most helpful way of considering things. Instead, it probably comes down to the specific use case you've got, not as much where the source code originated.
Would Sun go along with that, Rich?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Mark. It's really about building community. Open source is an accelerator for adoption. So we've been very active in open source. In the Java kind of sphere, Tomcat was originally a Sun project that was donated by us. Recently, we've open sourced our flagship operating system, our application server, at least the platform edition. So Project Glassfish, the next version of our Java E5 application server will be open sourced. If you read Jonathan's blog, Jonathan Schwartz's blog, I think our stance on open source should be clear. I think you'll see more and more. Open ESB is another Sun project. Open single sign-on. It's an accelerator for building community, and that's really important.
Jakob, a final question, I think, from you. We're going to be pressing short of time. We've got an announcement to make at the end, but let's just turn it to Jakob Fain again from Java Developers Journal.
I like all these answers about the usefulness of the open source, but in my opinion, the open source guys are very dangerous. Basically, what I want to say, I don't know where they get the money to survive. How do they develop software that is free? I cannot understand, even though I read the books about these things. But they are pushing hard, and this recent announcement, last week's announcements from IBM about Geronimo and about the WebSphere Community Edition, which is free, in my opinion, it forces IBM, a huge vendor, to change their policy from selling products to selling services. So, and that's why I'd like Mark to start answering this question. Are you afraid of open source?
We're not afraid of open source. It's a key part of our strategy moving forward. You'll see it even more important down the road than it is today. It's been important to us. If you consider Eclipse and support of Linux from us in the past, activity in the other divisions of the software group, in fact, in hardware we have open source activity. So we're not only not afraid of it, we embrace it. We feel it's a key part of our strategy because mainly it fits the needs of certain customer groups that we want to satisfy. So you'll see a lot more activity from us in the future compared with the past.
Okay, that was answering you in kind. Anyone else input on that? You can't speak for IBM, but...
Yes, I think that BEA not only embraces open source, but we've contributed to open source over the years. Think of Beehive, as you mentioned before, Jeremy, and XML Beans, a fantastic XML to Java binding. These we've all thrown over the fence to the open source community, and they're working quite well. In addition, we've taken frameworks that we've developed at BEA and have completely embraced the open framework version when it comes along. Think of JSP Model 2 controllers with struts. We completely threw out what we had done and adopted struts. The same thing with our entire tooling system called WebLogic Workshop, which we're now basing on top of the open source Eclipse.
Okay, passion there from Gary. We're getting a little short of time, but I'd just like to hear Sean.
So one of the points that was made was about the open source business model, and I think you really need to look at companies that have a professional open source or an open source business model. Red Hat's a perfect example of a company that's very successful. JBoss, we Partner ecosystem is very, very important to us. We have relationships with the major platform vendors out there, Sun, Unisys, HP, Dell, etc., to drive real business value for them and for JBoss customers. So when you look at the business model, you want to make sure that it's a scalable business model. It will be around for a while. Who's investing in it? I've mentioned some very strong names there. So they're key indicators of growth and success. And then the other thing that you want to take a look at is if there's a portfolio of products that are available, is it a consistent model? Is it simple to acquire? Or when you're using a low-end version, do you have to sort of hop over a chasm to get into a different price point, a different level of complexity, et cetera? Our fundamental answer to that is that we think that companies that are going to be very successful as pure open source plays really have to provide that value and stay focused on that open source model, embrace it. You can make money, it can be very successful. You just have to focus on building out that community, the partner ecosystem.
Well, there you are. There's JBoss getting the last word, and it will be the last word because I want now just to thank our guests, that's Sean Connolly, Mark Hyde, Mike Lehman, Gary McBride, Rich Sharples, and Dino Chiesa, and one unknown person hitherto. We have been doing a competition whereby someone listening has won themselves a video iPod. So just for tuning in and just for watching these gentlemen, I'm pleased to say I've just been handed a note that Micah Parker from Seattle, I'm unaware of the gender of Micah Parker, that's M-I-C-A-H, Micah Parker from Seattle, you have just won yourself the first ever video iPod to be awarded for watching SYS-CON TV. Thank you and good afternoon.